Earlier on, I spoke to Jamie Smith-Maillet, a journalist, on more about France's political tensions. Jamie, it's been a really busy day in French politics. Just remind us, how did we get here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this all came about with we could say now, former Prime Minister François Bayrou essentially tabling his austerity measures. It was all around the French budget and austerity measures that he was projecting for 2026. They proved to be, throughout the summer, relatively unpopular measures, and he surprised the political establishment by deciding that he would basically launch today and table a vote of confidence in both the measures, but also his government and essentially his cabinet, which is what we saw today. We saw the policy statement for these austerity measures, and also seeking in general for the parliamentarians, for MPs, to vote overall with confidence in these measures. But ultimately, what happened today is it came tumbling down. And as we saw there with the results earlier on today, it led to a vote of no confidence in Bayrou, no confidence in his government, and essentially in these measures. And we're left today without a government, with tomorrow morning here, it is expected Bayrou will have to hand in his official resignation letter to the president, Emmanuel Macron.
Jamie, you talk about there the unpopularity of these austerity measures with French lawmakers, but the reality is that some kind of austerity is needed. I mean, France has been running a budget deficit for more than 50 years. Public debt is over 100% of GDP. It's one of the worst economic situations in Western Europe. Are French lawmakers kind of sticking their heads in the sand here on this?
Yeah, well, it comes down to, in some ways, and what many will say is the parliament being extremely divided, and that's the case here with the far right party, the National Rally, but also the left bloc, just really not seeing eye to eye with the centrist and centre right parties in their move for austerity, which essentially was sort of shifting tax brackets, but also looking at other levels of spending cuts and elements as well that were publicized much in media here, of scrapping 2 public holidays. So these are measures, austerity measures, that really the left-wing parties would say, well, we need to look at a much fairer tax system by taxing the rich and looking at welfare at that level. And then the far right as well, they're saying it's just simply now time for the end of the centre and centre-right movement, and actually pushing towards the dissolving of Parliament. So what we're seeing is a bit of a financial crisis initially, pushing into a political crisis and potentially a social crisis as well across France.
I want to get into where we go from here in a minute, Jamie, but first of all, people watching and listening around the world, they think of French politics and they think of the president, Emmanuel Macron. What does the Prime Minister actually do? Is this an important job?
It is an important job, and I think the main thing is looking internationally is that, well, the sort of the man that we see in international events, and notably, is President Macron himself, and that's because he is sort of headlining and standing in front for the country in terms of international relations. He's been very present on the international scene, notably as concerns security and the situation in Ukraine. However, in reality, when it comes to domestic affairs, this is where the Prime Minister has a lot to do. And really, that's where there has been huge division in France around questions of the economy, questions as well relating to security, the welfare system. Really, a lot of the issues that affect, in many ways, the day-to-day lives of French nationals. That's where the Prime Minister and his cabinet has a role to play. And that's where this divided parliament has really struggled in the last year to come together on so many issues, not just the budget, but other questions as well, which remain extremely divided right across France.
So, Jamie, a collapsed government, no Prime Minister. Where do we go from here? Who's in the running for the job next?
The question essentially that's being asked at the moment in time. We did just hear, relatively surprisingly, it could be said, from the Élysée Palace that he wished to appoint a prime minister in the coming days, a matter of days, it was said. So there's already that message that he is pushing towards an appointment of someone, not dissolving the National Assembly, not resigning, which is what some have called out for. The names there are what we'll be watching closely. Is he going to nominate someone from the centre-right or possibly the right-wing party as he's done previously, or will he bow to the demands of left-wing alliance by seeking potentially for the first time a new prime minister from the centre-left? Yet to be known. All we do know is that Macron is not one of telling people in advance or speaking to the media in advance. It's really up to him, and he will come forward when he has that name, as we heard earlier, in a matter of days. And just before potential big social movements on Wednesday, which have been announced, protests on the street across the country. So we will have to watch and see.